So I have read through this one. I was skimming it earlier, and I I disagree. We all have our opinions, and I saw it and I said, "Oh man, this is interesting." So I skimmed through it, and down towards the bottom there was something I we'll discuss when we get there. But the title of this one is "The Sooner Android Accepts RCS is Dead, the sooner we can choose the next messaging platform that matters." As the rest of the world has proven, cross-platform messaging is achievable even without RCS. And before I go even in like any further than that, yes, this person it's their opinion, which I get it, but I'd say in the rest of the world, the iPhone isn't as dominant as it is. And that right there is almost a hard stop. That's the issue where, yeah, Android is extremely popular everywhere else. And yes, you'll end up using a bunch of third party apps anyway. But when half of your country uses one platform and the other half uses the other platform, when that one platform has figured it out, so when iMessage exists and that 50% of people is saying, well, we use things this way, and our device manufacturers choosing to not adopt what you guys have, and they're also not willing to open up what it is that we're currently using, then you end up in the situation that we're in. So, I mean, spoiler alert, I think the dude is going to name drop Signal, WhatsApp, Telegram, other apps that have been at Discord, apps that have been around for a little while, but it's, yeah, convincing your friends who are iPhone users who use iMessage, who are very comfortable with the experience that they're getting with other iPhone users, that that's going to be the problem. Trying to get them to switch, and it's I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but it's going to be pretty difficult to actually do. So last week, the world watched as Apple announced its newest phones. As silly, though no less intriguing as dynamic island might be, the iPhone 14 series fails to fix one of the biggest issues with modern smartphones, which is messaging. A day after Apple's keynote, Tim Cook took to the stage at Vox's Code conference confirming the company's position on RCS. It's not interesting. And if you want to send your mom high-res videos, you're better off buying her or yourself an iPhone. And coming from the top right there, it's like, yeah, the boss is saying we're not going to adopt it. So the likelihood of it happening is pretty close to zero. After months of increasingly desperate pleas from Google, it solidifies the state of cross-platform messaging as a disastrous mess in the US. Cook's comments are a spit in the face, not to just Android users, but to any iPhone user who wants to text their friends without worrying about the blue and green bubbles. I will say, and this isn't me reading, this is me saying, the colors of the bubbles aren't the problem. That is, and I feel like Apple just keeps it that way too, so people can just argue over the colors when they could change the colors of the bubble and still leave it the way that it is in terms of functionality, where, yeah, everybody has blue bubbles, but if you send it to an Android, your video is still going to look like trash. Or if they send something to you, it's going to look like trash. So the colors don't matter, but too much attention is given to that. So whatever. That's why it's finally time to push for your iOS-based friends and family to abandon their Blue Bubble group chats and move to a third-party chat platform. That's not going to happen. All right, like, you'll have people who download WhatsApp and download, some of the other stuff, Signal, Facebook Messenger if you're on Facebook, but convincing them to switch just isn't going to happen. And in fact, yesterday, I was talking to a good friend of mine, and for the past few weeks, we've been having similar debates of, Apple should adopt RCS. And then she'll say, well, there's really no incentive for them to do so. And I say, yeah, I agree. But at the same time, the user experience for iPhone users, in addition to Android users, would be improved if Apple adopted RCS, so forth and so forth. And I said, and my friend would always say, well, iMessage isn't that great anyway. And now, we would kind of talk about that too. So yesterday I realized, like, wait a minute, if you are claiming that iMessage isn't so great, you should turn it off on your phone, turn it off on your iPad. And I sent her that in a text. And she replied in the text saying, "Hey, can we discuss things a little bit later?" And I'm like, "Well, what is there to discuss? Like, just turn it off. Go in the settings and turn it off. That's it." And we talked on the phone a little bit, and I think for her, she might have been a little confused that even though your email address is associated with your Apple ID, if it's not explicitly your Apple ID, that she might have thought if somebody had that in their contacts, they would have sent that, like the message would have gone to their emails or would have got lost. And honestly, now that I think about it, if she does have somebody if somebody has her in their contacts with only their or only her Apple ID, yeah, that message might not get delivered. But if they have her phone number, then it shouldn't be a problem. But yeah, that last statement of trying to get people to drop iMessage, not going to happen. All right, and that's more so of that, like that's bigger than just the iPhone. That's people just using the default messaging app on whichever device they currently have. I was talking to a friend today, and since I've been using this Zenfone 9, I've been trying to see who else is using a messaging app that supports RCS. And for those individuals that I know have Androids, I start a chat with them and see, oh, does it switch to chat or does it just stay text message? And for the Android users who have, for my friends who are Android users, I did ask them like, hey, what messaging app? What messaging app are you using? And many of them, in fact, two of them just said, yeah, just the messaging app that came with the phone. Like they didn't even know what it was called. And the other one said he was using Messages Plus with Verizon, so at least he knew what he was using. But because none of them, none of our chats turned in, or none of our texting threads turned into chats, I guess that means whatever app they're using doesn't support RCS. So yeah, the whole mindset of just whatever messaging app came with the phone, that's what we're going to use. So on either platform, that's going to be what a lot of people end up doing. And we know that works, okay? So sending somebody a regular SMS is going to work. You don't need to download another app. You don't need to do anything else. With iPhones, you can send people SMSs, but then the default app also supports iMessage, okay? Now with Android, Google Messages supports RCS, and I know there's probably some other messaging apps out there that support it as well. So you get that same perk of, hey, you have a messaging app that can fall back to SMS if necessary, but it also supports a better internet-based messaging experience without the need to download a third-party app. Now, WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, all those things, yes, they would be an improvement, but one, you got to download it. Then you have to convince your friends to download it. And then you have to convince your friends to download, to use that instead of using their default app, which they would then have to convince other people to use this app. And it's just a cascading thing that isn't always going to work. So, interesting, very, very interesting. And let me continue. So yeah, let me say this up front. This problem is absolutely a US-centric issue. I'm fully aware that iMessage holds virtually no importance throughout most of the rest of the world. It's a problem that originated well over a decade ago when US carriers included SMS for free while other countries continued to charge additional fees, creating the conditions for services like WhatsApp to balloon in popularity while remaining in a minuscule player stateside. Unfortunately, I live in the US, so this struggle is all I know. To those fellow US-based readers, Android and iPhone users alike, it's time to join together and follow the rest of the world's lead. If persuading Apple to adopt RCS won't work, you must persuade your friends to download a new app. And that's just hard to do. I mean, I know I ranted about that for a few moments up above, but yeah, it's going to be hard to do. And this author or the author of this article also agrees. Don't get me wrong, this will be an uphill battle. iPhones are immensely popular in the US, and that user base is only growing. iMessage isn't just a crucial lock-in feature. It's also a way to keep people It's also a way to get people to switch away from Android. Tim Cook said it himself on stage this week. If you're sick of receiving or sending low-res videos, if you're sick of group chats breaking, if you're sick of being called a green bubble, Apple's solution is for you to buy an iPhone, which that is such a consumerism mindset right there of, yes, we could fix this with software, which probably wouldn't really cost us anything in the extent of what it would mean to the cost of development. I mean, yeah, some people might not buy iPhones or whatever, but no, we're not going to do anything. But you, customer, or maybe future customer, should go buy an iPhone or buy one for your mom or a family member. Of course, Apple, man, I don't want to say they will never have 100% market share in this country because who knows? Um, but yeah, and messaging for a lot of people just isn't that important. But for some of us it is, and just the overall experience is improved when you have features like RCS or iMessage. Um, and the author goes, and I hear you. You've gone through this before. You tried it in 2012 when you persuaded your family to jump on Hangouts, which I wasn't really doing too much with Hangouts back then. Um, but yeah, clearly it sounds like it failed. You tried it again in 2016, convincing some of your friends to download Allo from the App Store, which, yes, I convinced a few friends to do that, not many. Um, but the difference, especially for Allo, and I'm not sure about Hangouts, is when these messaging apps, one, aren't the default messaging app on your phone. You know, that's one hurdle to get over. And two, when the app doesn't default back to SMS, now means that people are going to have to use multiple messaging apps, which some people are okay doing that. And it's really not that big of a deal for some folks. But for a lot of us, and myself included, it's kind of like I don't feel like having to check multiple apps. Like I just want this one app to do everything I need to do in terms of sending text messages. And I think, don't quote me, but I think even though the Facebook Messenger app doesn't necessarily act as an SMS client, I'm pretty sure you can stay within the app and receive SMS messages. I could be wrong, but I downloaded it once and I'm pretty sure it asked me like, hey, would you like to be able to view your SMSs in Facebook Messenger? And I think when it does that, it's not acting as your default SMS client. It's just saying, oh, I'll just read and allow you to interact with your SMS messages in this same app. I think that's what happened. But if that is the case, which I probably should download it just to see, but if that is the case, they get it where they don't really feel like dealing with all of whatever's involved with becoming that type of app, but they want you to stay in their app. And yeah, it kind of does make it a little more convenient for everybody if you can say, all right, well, all my friends use Facebook Messenger and I'm able to get that improved user experience with the app, but it also allows me to see my regular SMS messages. Therefore, I don't have to switch to multiple apps or switch between multiple apps. So they get it, it seems like, but yeah, just don't want to have to become, your default messaging app. So yeah. And now that Google seems to be sticking with a messaging service and a decent one at that, it's disappointing to throw in the towel. RCS isn't perfect, but it is as close to iMessage for Android that people have been begging for years. It works with your phone number. It supports nearly every Android device and is virtually automatic. But outside the US, no one really cares about RCS. And to even matter in the US, RCS needs Apple to adopt it. Otherwise, we're stuck with the same issues we dealt with for over a decade, broken group chats and a lack of modern messaging features. Without some kind of forceful intervention, be it on the part of the government or carriers, Apple will not adopt RCS to support will not add RCS to support iMessage in the foreseeable future. Yeah, so it's not going to happen. Tim Cook isn't going to make it happen or isn't going to allow it to happen. It's unfortunate, and I think we're just going to kind of stick where we are. I will say that going back to just the title of the article, I don't think it's time for Google to accept that RCS is dead because, one, Google has tried a bunch of messaging services. And this is definitely Google Messages, I guess, really is like, the app. And then this underlying protocol is what we're trying to spread or get to spread. So I wouldn't want them to give up on it yet. Because if you give them this one and another one just gets released later on, then it's like, all right, well, now you still got to convince your friends to drop whatever they're currently using and start using this new app. I think of anything, the best way or the most likely way for something to succeed is for it, yes, to become universally used on Android, but whatever it is, have it so that it can be adopted into another default messaging app, i.e., the iMessage app. We don't want a competing app because iPhone users aren't going to get off of their default messaging app. So we need something that could potentially be integrated into what they currently use. And right now, it seems RCS is the best option for that.